the Board Game Live. I'm Seppy, and our special guest today is James from Tin Robot and the Board Game Binge. I've been on James's show a couple times, and he's like, "Hey, I want to do that TikTok thing you do on Wednesdays."
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So, we are on a zine quest this February, and Terrible Games. John is here. Shay is here. These are people who I both highlighted on my zine quest. James, did I inspire you to go on a zine quest, or are you strictly a man in? Aren't you currently on Venus? Isn't that where you currently are?
Yeah, I'm still. I'm living on Venus right now. I should have had a background with like the Venus, but yeah. Of course, plug time. We'll just get this out of the way right out of the hop. So, Cities of Venus Survivors, which is currently on Kickstarter. This is the game that we're running right now. Already funded.
Is City of Venus, is that a series? Do you have a whole bunch of Venus titles, or is this new? Like, tell me a little bit more.
Well, thank you for the leading question, the totally unscripted leading question. Thank you. So, yeah, it's so Cities of Venus is a universe that we created with the first game that we put on Kickstarter 2 years ago, I guess now.
Hold the game while you talk. Like, hug the game.
Oh, you want me to just hug it? There you go.
Hug the game. Hug the game, James. Yes.
Feeling. We'll just do that. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had, so Cities of Venus was the first game that we had in this series 2 years ago. And quickly during that campaign, we had been toying with a number of ideas, and decided, no, we're definitely going to make this a series. And so they're all standalone games. So the intent of this whole universe we've created is that you can jump in, jump out at any point, kind of like TikTok, right? And you don't have to have any experience with the universe or played any of the prior games. It's just the narrative story is everything falls under the same narrative, but they're all...
Yeah, let me jump in for a second right there. So, as we are, our topic for today is after the campaign, and James and I both have campaigns going on right now. And one of the things you want to think about during your campaign is, where does it take your fan or friend or other gamer to the next place? And you made the decision. Was this something after you were successful with it that you decided with this, or was it preconceived, like, if this is good, we'll do it? Or were you like, maybe I want to do more? Like, where was that in that whole mix-up?
That is a great question. We were... So my brother Adam is my co-designer on this. And he's helped co-design a lot of the games we have in our portfolio. We've got 12 games now. With this game, there'll be 12 games.
This is 12! This is 12. Lucky number 12.
Yeah,
it's so good.
It's a lot. It's gone quick. We've been doing this for 6 years now, and because again, this campaign was like 2.5 years ago, I guess, and we had some ideas of what we wanted to create if we were going to do another game in the series, but based on the success of the campaign and just people's reaction to the story itself, right? Because we had like these little side stories we were sending out. We called them chronicles.
Nice.
Little short stories that were day in the life of different people in this floating city. For those that don't know anything about Cities of Venus, it's loosely based on what it would really be like if humans decided they wanted to colonize Venus. And there's a huge scientific community, which many people don't know, that actually say that we should be aiming our sights at Venus, not at Mars. Ooh. Because it is more habitable. So first and foremost, just to get there, it's faster. So instead of a 3-month or a 6-month trip with Mars, it's about 3 months to get 2.5 to 3 months to get there.
But you're going towards the sun.
That's right.
More radiation.
So we line up more frequently. So instead of every 2 years, your launch window is like every 9 months. So you can go there and back faster, so you don't have the same, hey, we have some astronauts that are abandoned in space, I guess they're going to die kind of scenario like we're going to have with Mars. Mars is 2/3 the size of Earth. So a lot of people don't talk about that. But if you go and stay in a habitat on Mars, you're not coming back. Your bone density lost, your organs, you can't. There's actually been movies about this of people trying to, like, or the one where the kid tries to come back to Earth after living on Mars. and his body can't handle it, right? Because the gravity is so different.
What is the mass of Venus?
It's almost the same as Earth. It's like 98% the mass of Earth. Like they're literally like twin worlds. There's no atmospheric pressure on Mars. The area on Mars is something like 2% the density that we have here on Earth, right? So you have to have a pressurized suit. Your station, your habitats have to be pressurized. If they don't, and you see the movie with Matt Damon where he's the Martian, he has that, right? He has rapid explosion of one of the units because it springs a leak and it just explodes. On Venus, the atmospheric pressure is the same as it is here on Earth at sea level.
Yes, but isn't it boiling ammonia? Like, isn't it?
Well, here's the catch. It's not at the surface. So if you went down to the surface, you would die instantly because it is 4 times the pressure of the deepest part of our ocean, just with the thickness of the atmosphere stacked on top of you. But at 50 kilometers, which I think is like 35 miles or whatever, up in the air, in the clouds, the atmospheric pressure is the same as it is on Earth. Not only that, the temperature is the same as it is on Earth. It varies between like 22 and like 36 degrees Celsius, which is like Panama. Like that's the typical weather in Panama. So that's the temperature you have. Same atmospheric pressure, same gravity, same temperature. The only difference is it's the clouds are acidic.
The other big one then is what kind of magnetic field does Venus have to keep all the pew radiation away? Like, that's one of the great things about Earth, that iron core is keeping us safe from awful. They got you
covered. They got you covered as well because the amount of clouds above where you would be floating filters out the UV radiation. So you've got like it is the perfect environment. The only difference is you're not ever going to set foot on terra firma, and you would have to wear protective clothing. You'd have to coat the station would have to be coated in some kind of protective coating because you have sulfuric acid clouds that are going to constantly eat away at stuff. But if they had a bunch of Russian scientists did this in the 70s where they were saying. You could have a city that had a base inflated with breathable air, and the natural buoyancy of that would actually keep that city afloat. If it ever sprung a leak, it would be a slow leak, and you could go and patch it real quick and so forth, right?
City!
You just float around the planet, So that's what our game is based on, the near future Earth, and so that campaign did very well for us, and we decided to continue on with the story, and so there's right now 4 games that are already kind of published, quasi-published. So we have Cities of Venus Lost Contact, completely different mechanics. That game is all about resource allocation.
Question.
What's this?
What size box is the game series? Are the other ones hanging out? Are they all in the same size box?
I love these loaded questions. They are fantastic. Yes. They are. So this is the Cities of Venus box, which we had this nice little kind of gift open box.
Ooh,
right? And this little flap opens up. This flap then opens up, and we go whoosh.
Whoa.
Right?
I love it when a dude opens up their flap like that for me, James. Exactly. I love it. Absolutely. It's fantastic.
All the boxes will look like this, and they'll be exactly the same, so you can stack them beside each other in a calyx. This is the... In the sequel we're talking about is Survivors. We have a 1 to 4 player and a 1 to 6. The 1 to 6 is in the premium box. The 1 to 4 is still in a nice premium box. Like these boxes have inside lid printing and things like this. But it's more of a telescoping box instead of that expensive gift opening box. But yeah, they all fit in the same story. So the second iteration we have on Kickstarter right now, again, completely different game. The first one was resource allocation.
Okay, so for folks who don't know, we are talking about after the campaign today. And my guest, if you haven't seen him before, this is James from the board game Binge and, more importantly, Tin Robot. They are currently on their 12th campaign, the campaign for their 12th game, while I am currently, here's my box size, James. Like, let's not, I don't have box envy. I only have one your size, but like this is, when we were talking about today's topic, which is what comes after, when you have established an audience, getting them to come on to the next thing is so much about the next steps after the game. And everything that you can do to get them to harness the love they have for your current title and come with you on this journey is inherently a good thing. So James was talking about all the amazing things about his Venus verse and how little elements during the campaign that were fun for him, that inspired his audience, inspired the theme and setting for the next games. And so we got a lot of super amazing science nerdery, which I love.
Yeah, I love it.
And then we got to see the other games, like the super fancy magnetic box. Oh my God, I'm in love with that box, James.
That's amazing.
And just so you know, James is in a rarefied category of crowdfunders who tend to deliver early on their crowdfund promise.
Yeah.
Like, one of them, he has delivered 4 months late, but in the land of crowdfunding, I had to absolve him and say, hey, that's on time for crowdfunding. Like 4 months, no one's going to care about, like, only you and I care, James.
I feel
about
shame.
4 months.
I feel shame.
You should not feel shamed. You should feel good about it. Like anything under a fraction of a year is, it doesn't even count, like all this kinds of stuff. But any more things that people should know? When you've already funded, right, James?
Yeah, we're 2x the funding goal already. So we're on day 2 now.
And when does it end?
Oh, it ends at the end of this month. So we've got like 28 days to go.
Okay. So people get excited about this. If you like an original nerdy space verse with a little bit of hard science, if The Expanse was for you, like if you like that whole sort of setting in and around like the probe has landed on Venus, what is it doing? Yep. A story arc for The Expanse. These games could be for you. And I love me a Cloud City, from Flash Gordon to Star Wars. I love me a Cloud City.
Let me throw one little thing in here. Let me just one little thing if I could.
Yes.
This version, for those who are looking for the one on Kickstarter right now, it's a dice manipulation polyomino game. So
I was right about to ask that.
Yeah, we got these two mechanics that we've mushed together. So think a Baron Park, if you've played that, plus, or say Patchwork, if you want to get real simple with polyominoes. But the Tetra shapes and dice like Fantastic Factories or Dice Throne, dice chucking, doing Yahtzee combinations, things like that. The dice you use to operate your mech. You're on the surface now mining, and you're trying to basically find survivors and then fix your mech and then go back up to the clouds. So this game, you're using dice to manipulate your mech to explore the surface. Your exploration of the surface is the polyomino tiles you're using. And then there's a lot of kind of connective tissue here. This is what Seppy was saying of like, what do you do to kind of bring people from one campaign to the next? And one thing that's been a focus for us is what we call connective tissue. Yes, we've got Cities of Venus as a narrative universe, that these things are all connected. And we've got Dust Reclamation that comes as an add-on in this campaign. Prior campaign had Time Splicers. These all connect to the story. So you have people who are completionists who want to kind of, once they're immersed, they want to have everything that's involved in that. Other things that we did is we said, okay, well, if I'm going to put, say, gems in Dust Reclamation, which is the currency in this little kind of side quest game, they're the same acrylic gems that you find in the larger games. We've got little meeples that are called V-Knots. We call them V-Knots. It was in Lost Contact. The same meeples are now in Survivors, right? So the elements we have going from game to game, that connective tissue is kind of embedded there. And what we're hearing from backers is they like the idea of being part of kind of a larger narrative. And this is a trend you're starting to see in the industry where people are starting to build kind of like a universe where they have several games fit within the same. Garfield Games does a great job of this. Theirs is more along the artwork style and so forth, but still you can see some connective tissue there. That is a trend you're going to see more and more publishers now take advantage of and really try to create their own, for lack of a better word, IP. And so that's what we've done. Another thing that we found we were successful with is and we'll do the same thing when this campaign is done, is create something that is a teaser and a link for what's to come. So what I did on Cities of Venus Lost Contact, I was saying earlier, is we had these little short stories we're doing of a day in the life of people in the city. we had one short story was about a miner who was in a mining mech going down to the surface. His ascent thrusters failed, and he really resigned himself to his fate. He was going to die, right? It was a one-way trip, but he finished his mining, and you can hear over the speaker the people are cheering for him, and the lights are starting to dim in his mech, and then it cuts to black, and that's the end of that story. And people are like, "Oh my god, that's so tragic," right? And we're like, "Yeah, people die on Venus. This isn't about levity. Like, there's a lot of people dying in this game, right?" But we did an epilogue. So after the campaign was done, we did another story, which is an epilogue back to the same guy, where he hears a little signal off in the distance. And so he checks his console real quick and realizes, oh my gosh, there's survivors out there. Maybe what I can do is, if I can even save one person, then my sacrifice is worth it. So then he makes it his mission to go out and try to find survivors. To be continued, ... brings you now to Survivors of Venus, the game. Right?
Nice.
This game, when we finish this one, we'll then ... we'll go into the next one, which is going to be Civil War, which is going to come in another year from now. So just want to throw that out there.
Let's talk two things that I think that you mentioned that are really, really good that people should think about when making their own games and universes. If people have elements that are recognizable, like if this meeple is this that everybody understands, 1-to-1, that's less cognitive load for them to get on board with your new title. Boom.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, everybody who's a game designer should think about narrative, because narrative is also in and around your theme the best way to get people to remember the mechanisms that you are teaching them. And the things that are familiar but new, like people, that is what is very, very exciting. If things are too new for people, it doesn't have an audience already. That's a real problem. And number 2, it's hard to teach. If you're getting people on board with a lot of mechanisms, I was reminded of this like on Saturday after I got done with Con of the North. I went to a private, like a friend of mine, their Gateway Gamer group, and it was a reminder to me how many skills the average gamer has invested in and nomenclature so that they can jump into games as easily as possible. And you and you really want to do that with your own fan base. Like for example, if you look at like leader games, everything is asymmetrical because that's what their fan base expects. Yeah. And that is also, then they don't have to teach those people that anew. But, I have 2 asymmetric games now with Kaiser Cucumber and Mouse Cheese Cat Cucumber. And like for walking into a pocket-size audience rather than a sort of medium weight game audience, that is definitely a thing. So that is great. So the campaign went well. In 24 hours, you double X'd your thing. So things are going well for you, James.
Yeah, I think we're at like 50, close to 50,000. I'll put in Canadian dollars. There's no other way I can see it. But yeah, we had a goal of 20,000. We're at just shy of 47,000 so far. So happy with where we're at. Definitely a lot more work to go, right? So we have
a lot.
Some places, as you know, it's a grind, right? 30-day grind.
All right, let's talk about that for folks. Crowdfunds, traditionally, it doesn't even matter how long they are. A third of your funding is in the first 3 days. A third of your funding is in the, in your case, 24 days in the middle, and then a third of your funding is the last 3 days. Okay. Yeah. That can make this an incredibly arduous journey. Like, it keeps you hyper alert. You've got to have interesting content. You're like, hey, friend, I want to be on your show now.
Yeah, seriously. It's like, will anybody listen to me? Please, anybody, please let me go on.
And they will, James. You've been doing the binge for a long time. You're easy to listen to. We have a question
somebody
here.
asked it is Tin Robot Games, if someone's asking in the, I see Kat was just asking, I think it was saying, what's the name of the developer? If you want to look up other finished game, tinrobotgames.com, you can find all the games. On Kickstarter, literally type in Cities of Venus. You'll find our things. What I just want to say is I think what's important to note, and I don't want to skip past this point because you just brought it up, literally 2 minutes ago. I think is the importance of, like, when you say this person, it's their thing, right? Your small box with asymmetry is your thing. Part of the shorthand with your backers is being consistent with what it is that you're bringing to the table. And why that's important and how it's relevant to what we're talking about here is after the campaign is publishers like Seppy and I want to build as large of an audience as we possibly can. Every single time we send an email out, you're going to have unsubscribers, right? It's just the nature of the game. You're going to lose 10, 12, 40 people. You never know. It's a mix. And you got to think the cost to each of those people. Right now in Meta, I'm paying $4 US per lead to get people's emails into my system. So when people are unsubscribing, you send an email, start doing the math, right? That's the cost every time you send an email. So you got to be very, very specific about when you're sending emails and to make sure you're getting what you need to get out of that email, because it's going to cost money. One of the things that can cause a large unsubscribe rate is when you are doing a game that's a party game and you're known as the party game guy, and then you're doing a heavy Euro as your next campaign. You build your audience.
Picking on me, James.
No, I'm not saying you, but this is important, right? It's that it's your audience continuity, because if you build your audience up over here, and you think of it like a Venn diagram, and they don't intersect with the next thing you're doing, you're going to lose people, right? You're going to have people. Best case, they just ignore your emails. Worst case, they unsubscribe, and then you lost investment. So this is why it's important for publishers to very quickly try to figure out, what is my identity as a publisher? What are the types of games I'm making? And how can I consistently communicate that to my audience so that I'm not losing that audience every time I'm kind of going through this journey, and I can build on my audience, not kind of have the audience keep shrinking as we go. I just wanted to get that.
So we decided on 3 game types. So for us, we have the small box series and games that are in our cozy steampunk world of Mechanical Corners. Then we have our outrageous sci-fi universe, and then we have our Apocalypse series, which is and all of them are identified by their box size. So it's like, oh, small and thinky, like medium weight and spacey, and like generally about the end of the world. Like each one has its own thing. And they all have, like, there's some overlap between them, but there are people who have very strong preferences. Like, this game isn't for somebody who loves Squirrel or Die necessarily. Like Kaiser Cucumber might be a little too wacky for some of the end of the line people, but maybe it's not. It depends. If you are 2 things in that vein, you would like your projects to gain like audience size as you go. You're continuing. Today's topic, of course, is after the campaign and what you do. And one of the main things you need to do is build on the success of that title and the fan base of that title. And when you move off of that title, you're going to lose some people. And even if you're going to make an expansion for the original game, you're going to lose about 75% of, or you're going to, like, 25%. You're only going to get about 75% of those people coming back for the next level of shenanigans. So that's also one of the reasons why you see games like Azul or Splendor giving a whole new twist to the thing. It's not an expansion. We're just going to give you a new way to play. Right. And so that they're reinvigorating their base. Like Codenames could have done that, but now Codename does this thing, right? And so
I think this is why you're seeing, like I was saying earlier, about more publishers are creating kind of like these narrative universes that they're playing in. And I'm thinking Voidfall is a great example of this. I was talking about this last night on a live that we're doing, and someone asked me, what's the biggest risk doing that you found going into Cities of Venus Survivors versus coming off of Lost Contact? And my response to them was that although they're standalone games, you can play them as they are. They have, other than thematically being connected, they're different games, even mechanically, and purposely we're trying to make them even mechanically different from title to title. you still run the risk of people saying, "Oh, wait a second, that's the second in the story. Why wasn't part of the original story? So I don't know if I'm in." So that circle that you're targeting is getting smaller and smaller. And
but simultaneously, the advantage is if somebody discovers you, there are those people who are like, "I need to get your back catalog."
Bingo.
Right.
And this is what Voidfall did with their recent The Revenant. Right, was it's in the same universe, completely different game. And I literally took their Kickstarter page lead image, put it into Illustrator, and built my image, copying, because it was so well articulated to the backers. This is in the same universe, completely different game. It's standalone, and then here's mechanically how it's different. They had those kind of 4 buckets at the top, and they hit that rate quickly, so you don't run into that same issue with
this is people, right? A very important thing. If you are small and indie or just getting started and you're trying to figure out how do I organize my page, if you're going to do it yourself, you're going to do it with somebody who's never done it before, the best thing you could possibly do is look at a successful page, and that one communicates to you. And then number one, do sort of a storyboard that follows that page. And then number two, get advice from other people who've done that to give you feedback on your page. Those are the two things. Like, you should not go it alone. You should absolutely not go it alone. Like, you don't, like, if you're inventing a car, you don't need to add a 5th wheel in the middle. Like, it'll be weird. Like, there are some optimal sizes for airplanes for a reason. Like, you can use the optimization that is present in all the, and no one, like, yeah, this is not a trade secret. This is not a thing. Like, how you organize your information is very, very important. And how quickly you convey the sticking points for people is very, very important.
I'll do a shameless plug for these guys. Crowdfunded, so it's Launch Boom. People might have seen it showing up on people's pages. Again, I have no affiliation to these guys other than I had him on our podcast, and then I read his book. But in his book, he actually goes through and templates it out for you and says, here's basically how you structure a page, right? And and I mean, you don't have to hire these guys. You can literally, they offer this stuff for free. There's lots of us. They're trying to pay it forward to offer this information for free, right? And as Seppy's saying, like, it's not.
And there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, crowdfunding is getting more and more difficult. We've talked about this multiple times with social media channels being what it is, and people checking out for very good and mental health and sanity reasons, right? It is very hard for an indie to acquire new fans. And so you either pay that, like, $4 is cheap, James. Like for a qualified lead, for that to convert, you are paying $8 to $14. That's just to have the email.
Just email is $4. The math right now goes $17 USD. Is your acquisition cost per backer?
Yeah, it is brutal. So, and that's assuming that you might even already know something or have a connection with that person already. Like, that math has made it insane. So, other people in the industry are trying to get people to love crowdfunding again because rising tide raises all boats, right? Like, 100%. James, I'm sure you're going to tell your backers about my insanely Kickstarter because it's going on now. Or at least that you're on my show. And more importantly, we want people to have a positive experience. Like, you and I are in the rare category of people who have delivered early and usually deliver on time. I know you're really mad about this 1 out of 12.
Oh, it kills me. I know. We were talking about this a couple weeks ago.
Like that you do not have a 100% record like me. I have 8 and I have 100%. But I'm going to give myself a pass at 12 too, James. Just to be fair, I'm going to, but like, when somebody fails hard with a really big crowdfund, they have taken those people out of the audience pool forever. Right?
Yeah, it's and I would say, and this happened to me on our 2 campaigns ago, the first Cities of Venus game, where I had, you see these weekly roundups, right? The Dice Tower does one. There's different content creators out there that do weekly roundups where they'll just go through the Kickstarters and they'll just comment on them. They haven't played the games. They're literally just going through, browsing the page like you would as a user. And they make comments about, does this look interesting? Does it not look interesting? And it happened to me where at least two, and one was Dice Tower and another one was some other guy. I can't remember the other guy's name, where they went through my page and like, well, what other games has he done? So they clicked on my profile, saw my other campaigns. Well, these other campaigns are more gateway type games, and yeah, they're smaller campaigns. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's a risk here. Maybe wait till this goes to retail. Was the comment, right? And not realizing they literally just kneecapped me. So any backer who was on the fence, I just got kneecapped, right? And
right.
So and the problem is I had to put in the comments that, guys, this isn't available at retail. You can only get this on Kickstarter.
All right. So right? This is a very important point. This is a super duper important point. One of the things that you have to do with your title, and hopefully you did this before, but if you did not do this before, or depending on how your campaign goes, you figure out the business model of your company or of that title. Like a company can have a lot of different business models that operate in it, right? If your number one customer is board game retailers, that's a thing. If your number one customer is gift shop retailers, that's a different thing. Like if your number one customer is direct to consumer, that is also like its own animal. Like obviously the largest direct to consumer probably right now is Jamie Stegmaier's program.
Yeah.
Like Stonemaier has, if you didn't know, Stonemaier has this program that's sort of like Patreon that you give a monthly subscription fee, and then when the next title hits, you get all the things that you would if a crowdfund happens, because he doesn't do them anymore, and you get massive discounts on the thing because he's like, you've already paid for this as part of your monthly shenanigans, right? Yeah. Trying to reinvent and captivate that audience to stay involved and stay with him on a month-to-month basis. Also, like leveling out the hiccups of cash flow. Like it's like, oh, this is
allows him to
definitely
predict too, right? So if you take FinSpan for example, I'm going to get to Redbeard's comment in a second too, because Redbeard made a comment I want to address. Yeah, if you look at
that's
like
Pat, by the way.
Is it?
Redbeard's Pat. Just say hi to Pat.
Nice, Pat. I'm gonna get to your comment in a second because I got some thoughts. I got some words. All right. So when you look at like FinSpan, right, that one delivered crazy fast. They have stock ready to go within like weeks of announcing the game. They can do that because they have that subscription model where they can more accurately predict what kind of volume they're going to need, obviously based on prior titles and so forth. But these kind of pre-signups and subscriptions gives them a sense of, okay, here's what we're going to need. And they know what the conversion rate is on those subscriptions as well for who's going to actually take different games and so forth. The comment I want to make about Red Brewery is that next you're going to tell me backers can get their games before retail. This is another issue, though, that I think why we're seeing some people leave the platform. And quite frankly, I'm one of them, where I used to I'd be backing stuff like crazy. And then I would go to my local like game store, and they're announcing that they're getting their stock in of a game that's on Kickstarter that I haven't even got my copy on yet.
Right.
And not to call out like Lucky Duck and these different kind of licensing houses. It's not
to call them out by name. Quack,
Lucky
quack,
Duck,
quack,
quack, quack. If it looks like a duck, no, but
it was lucky like a duck.
The way the system is set up, right? So what people don't understand is, like, say a publisher goes and signs with Lucky Duck, who does like localized licensing. When the manufacturing is done, Lucky Duck says, okay, we need this amount for our stuff, and then the publisher is going to take the rest for Kickstarter. The factory ships to both of them at the same time. Lucky Ducks, and I'm just using them as an example, right? But they have a distribution network that is worldwide and uber efficient. So they can get it to all the retailers super quick. They're shipping skids and so forth. The publisher is trying to ship to individual backers using a very different distribution model. And what happens is these retailers now are getting the games before the backers are, and it relies on the goodwill of the retailers of saying, okay, we'll hold off putting on
Let's talk about
the backers get their games. This has been an issue. So one of the fixes for this that we've done is games like Cities of Venus is only on Kickstarter. I've turned down dozens of retailers. Like I literally had one that got up at Origins 2 years ago when I was there. She sat down. She goes, "Okay, I'm ready to go. I want let's talk volume discount. How many can I get?" And I go, "I'm not selling them to retail." And she's, "What?" I go, "Yeah, no, this is just straight to backwards. We're not doing retail." And she's like, "Are you being serious right now?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm being totally serious." She got up and walked away. She was pissed, but it just goes to show that a retailer is going to take half price off, right? So they're going to buy for 50% off. The distributor that sold it to them, they need to make their 25 to 30 points. So by the time it gets down to kind of what the publisher's making, it's like you need to sell one direct-to-consumer game is going to make the same profit for you as going and selling to a retailer 4 to 6 copies.
Yeah, we will talk more about the various models, but that is 100% correct. His math is really good in there. A couple of things. Redbeard corrected me about the annual fee for JB Stegmaier. It's an annual fee. It's not a monthly. That's very good. For those folks who are going to watch this later on YouTube, that's good for them to have. And as we are walking through today's topic, which is everything after the campaign.
We haven't got to the campaign yet.
And this is my guest, James from Tin Robot and the board game Binge. And we're talking about how you need to address your success. That's probably the best way. The worst thing that you can do, and I did this, like for my first game, is not capitalize on the momentum of something that you've done well. Like end of the line crowdfunded, and I should have immediately done the second one like 6 months later, which was already ready to go. And that would have been a much better 2013 for me. But what instead I did was be an adult and deliver early, get everybody their games on time before retail, then like get it into retail, and then sell out of my my inventory. And that is what I did, which seemed like a good idea, but was terrible for capitalizing on how awesome like crowdfunding was in 2013 compared to now. Like, yeah. I did not know time was ticking. Time was ticking, James. It was ticking.
Just because it's TikTok, and I know we have to keep reminding people. For those just joining us, again, I'm publishing Cities of Venus Survivors, which is on Kickstarter right now. It's part of a part of a narrative universe. It's a second chapter, but they're all standalone, so you don't have to be part of it.
See, James, you were supposed to have one of these going on so people could read it. Do you see how it's all nice and flipped?
We'll throw it like here, like there.
Yes. There we go. Put it, or hug it, James. Hug
I gotta hug it. Maybe I'll do the hug.
Yeah.
So,
since we're doing shameless plugs, and for shameless plugs, there's 48 hours left on Kaiser Cucumber as well. If folks like the Wednesday Board Game Live, please go throw this a buck. Or, more importantly, go see all the rest of our friends who I threw money at this month and give them some money for their projects. We have John from Terrible Games. We have Shay from Neon Yellow. We have Andy from Dodeca Donuts. All those people ended up in my wallet taking my money because this month we were discovering it is about people, not platforms. So, that being said, now that
Can I ask you a question about what you're just with your, because you have 48 hours left. When you do communications out, do you send communications from your prior campaigns?
Yeah, sometimes. Usually.
Not always?
Not at the regularity we used to. We usually do a previous campaign based on relevance. Or if there's another beat that comes from our campaigns that makes sense to tie it in, we will do the tie-in.
So you won't do, hey, here's another update on XYZ game. Most cat cheese cucumber.
This is one of we did do that. We're like, hey, usually there's some
coming and yeah,
there's usually something relevant. That's also the good reason to flip through games and have multiple games in the bin. Like for example, the original Mouse Cheese Cat Cucumber campaign, we sent a message to them because the characters that these people helped inspire ended up being major features for this game. So, like, the person who won our crossword challenge, her character, she actually made her cat a character in the universe. That cat is one of the 4 masterminds for Kaiser Cucumber. So we talked about that there. Like, we try to make it relevant instead of shameless buy. Does that make sense, James?
Yeah, I'm more shameless.
That's probably why you're more successful. That's probably why you have 12 and I have 8.
It's not more successful. It's different success, right? I would say that, and here's why. And it's not kind of buy, but I think it's important to use prior campaigns to say, from within the Kickstarter platform, like going into your pledge page, doing a new update saying, hey, by the way, everyone, I hope you're enjoying your game. Love to have, send us your questions or, send us your pictures. By the way, we just launched another game in our portfolio that some of you might find interesting. Here's some details on it. Click here to go to that page. People will rarely unsubscribe from Kickstarter. Right? So when we were talking about that $4 cost earlier, when we were sending out an e-blast and someone unsubscribes and it costs you $4 because it costs you $4 to get that lead in the first place. Right. When you do it through the Kickstarter platform, there's like a 0 chance that they're going to actually unsubscribe because they have. There's like a 0 chance that they're going to actually unsubscribe because they have to unsubscribe from multiple campaigns. Do it in a tasteful way. I'm not saying spam people, but
you should do it in a tasteful way. You should leverage past successes. You should do it in a tasteful and relevant way, and you should think about it as how many times you need to get it in front of a person before they register it existing. Okay, yeah. So remember, you need to mention something to a person 9 to 12 times before they register that it's real. And it's worse if it's like scrolling feed and so forth and whatnot. And that's one of the reasons why you see all the shenanigans. And it's worse by demographic as well. Like my amount of ads that I see and the amount of ads that James see is fractional compared to women who make household decisions. If you are household decision age, then yes. Okay, so the Midnight Tavern, thank you so for all the roses. I love when men give me roses. I'm currently backing 5 campaigns with another 20 in post-pledge pre-fulfillment. You are broke. I understand, but mine's very small. You should think like still.
Here's some interesting. I was going to say some data points on that. So I just pulled up I used Brevo to send her emails. So if I look at the last update I did, where I just said, hey, we're live on Kickstarter and we funded. I sent out an email to everyone, let them know we funded, right? That email had a 30% open rate. Right?
Okay.
And of the open, yeah, right. Well, I mean, but that's typical. I mean, I might get up as high as maybe a 36%. But what you have to understand is that when you're doing e-blasts out with all the spam filters that people have and end up in their spam box, the number of eyeballs that actually see that email in the first place, where it even shows up in the inbox, doesn't go straight to the spam folder, is significantly less than the list you sent to. So let's take that 30%.
Yep.
Then you look at how many people actually opened it and clicked on something, right? Then you're looking at what, maybe 2 to 5%, right? So when you do that math, and people are always worried about spamming, if you send out an e-blast to your audience, you might only have literally 5% of the audience that actually even got to read that email.
Yep.
And that's why it's important to have to keep, it's kind of like when you see them in the ER and they're like, hit him again with the paddles, right? You gotta keep hitting that list because it takes the repetition before it actually gets in front of people's eyeballs. And people often shy away from that because they think that they're hitting the same people over and over again. And that's not necessarily the case.
James is correct and do a rhythm where they can expect it. So if you are looking for it, you're not punished. But if you have not caught it yet, you will be hit. Like you really want both of those things happen. And so this campaign, I had 40 followers when we launched, James. Wow. I had 40, which is terrible. You shouldn't do that, right?
That's
but
horrible.
We found it in 6 hours.
I would not
right?
recommend that, yeah.
Yeah, I would not recommend that. It's instead of it funding in 33 minutes, it funded in 6 hours because I had only 40 followers. But the universe is what it is, right? And that gets me to this very critical point. There is an optimal way to do things, and you are trading time, money, and security or quality for those things. Yeah. So today's topic, of course, is after the campaign. And when you are making those trades, be aware of them. So when you are hitting your audience with multiple messages, buy messages, that's going to do one thing. It is also going to do another thing. Yep. Like when you choose a vendor who is cheaper, you are lowering your costs, which is inherently good. But simultaneously, you are a different manufacturer will also give you either more risk or just the risk of changing workflow.
Yeah.
So, finding out where you should be spending time and money in your own company or outside of your own company. One of the books that I'm currently going through for the second time is Traction. Did you read Traction?
No.
Eventually you'll get there. It's for companies of a certain size. It's like you and your brother right now. Yeah. But eventually you have to come to this point of like, what can I do to make change my business because I've hit a ceiling with the time that I have, or all this other kind of stuff. Yeah, and that's the core. So there's a lot of stuff about working internally in your business so that you can take on more customers or more business, or working outside of your business so people's perception of you, your community's larger, and all these kinds of things. So when you're thinking about the trades that you...
Shout out to David. David was joining the live last night as well. How's it going, David?
Woohoo! David! David is one of our regulars.
Yeah, David's great.
So to that end, as on our topic, what did you find as a best use of your time inside your business and post-project, James?
That's an interesting question. I'm going to answer the question I think you asked versus what that question was. So I'm not fully understanding your question, but I can answer the question one
that
answer.
Is fair. That is fair. You can ask me. You can have me ask it again. Like,
I think the essence of what you're getting to is how best do you approach the exit ramp, right? When you're doing a campaign, right? And how do you maximize both your revenue as well as your time, right? And your quality. I'll put that as the third one there. And you and I talked offline after our podcast about some of the shenanigans I was going through with one of my manufacturers.
It seems like you're having a better week this week, James. It seems like you're having a better week this week.
Well, I'll give you an update on that. But so I want to start actually with the moment the campaign ends, because what I think a lot of people don't realize is I visualize it like a leaky bucket, right? A bucket, your pledges is a bucket with a bunch of holes in it, okay? And your role when the campaign ends is to cover up as many of those holes as possible so those pledges don't leak out.
Okay.
First and foremost, the second anybody's running a campaign, the second it funds, go into the dashboard and download the entire backer list immediately. And the reason you need to do this is what, on average, I mean, it can be as high as like 8%, but you're looking at least 2 to 5% of credit cards are going to fail. Not because people's credit cards are bad, but because sometimes their credit card companies might not look at Kickstarter as a valid vendor, or might think there's something wonky there, and it just it rejects Kickstarter's attempt to hit their card. Maybe they change their address. Whatever it is you're going to have anywhere from 2 to 5% of those cards that get rejected. Kickstarter will try 3 times over, I believe it's a 5-day period, to hit that card. The second, the third time hit rejects, that backer gets jettisoned from the list.
Oh, I didn't. You're teaching me something I did not realize.
And here's the problem. Here's something that Seppy does know, is right now, if you went into your backer list and look at Bob just backed your game, right? So Bob just wants to get cut.
Thank you, Bob. I need the money. I'm very poor.
Yeah, you know nothing about Bob. It literally in our dashboard, just until you fund, literally just says Bob. No email, no location. Have no idea if Bob is in Kuwait or if Bob is down the street from me. I have absolutely zero clue. And this is why people or sometimes will be like, hey, I never got my game. And it's like, okay, but you never filled out the pledge. We don't know who you are. We have no idea of telling, because Kickstarter does not provide that information until the second the campaign closes. And the clock starts where, again, that leaky bucket, you could potentially lose pledges. You have to download that list immediately. What do you do with that list? You're going to cross-out it. So you're going to look at, after the 3 days expires and Kickstarter jettisons everything and says, okay, here's your funds. They transfer the funds to you, which takes about 2 weeks. And then that's the remaining backers you have. Many people will either deal with themselves or they put it in what's called a pledge manager. There's Backer Kit. There's a pledge manager actually called Pledge Manager. GameFound has a free one. There's tons of them out there. I've used several of them. Currently, I'm using Backer Kit because I happen to think they're great. But your list is going to get ported into there. You're going to want to go through and cross-tab all the names that got kicked out from the final list versus the initial list you downloaded, and you're going to manually put them into your Pledge Manager. And what you're going to do in that Pledge Manager is you're going to reach out to those people saying, hey, your card, for some reason, we lost track of you, didn't get hit. Don't worry, we've protected your pledge. It's still in the system. You're still getting the backer cost. And you can enter your information here and finish your pledge on the Pledge Manager side and add any add-ons and things you want.
That is great, James. That is,
yeah.
I hope it doesn't violate anybody's terms of service, but I absolutely
I don't
love
care.
that.
I just do it until you get complaints. The way I look at this is those people intended to pledge.
Yeah.
The system kicked them out, and it is your duty as a publisher to make sure that person's not lost. They went through the effort of reading your page, making the decision, I'm going to invest my money, their money to back your game. And as far as they're concerned, everything is good. They don't know that they've been kind of, exit stage left. So it's your duty, quite frankly, to make sure that they're not lost. The other thing I do that a lot of people don't realize, I actually ran the numbers on this with 2 campaigns now. And I did a TikTok on this where I said, if I offered you $2,000 for an hour and a half of your time, would you be willing to do an hour and a half of your time for $2,000? Most people would say, yeah, absolutely. And the analogy I gave is when we did Lost Contact. As you know, Seppy, you have people coming in day 1, people coming in day 2, and day 3, it's like a slide. You start seeing people jumping the ship, right? They see other shiny objects, they move on, and they cancel their pledge.
Ooh, shiny!
Just by asking people to come back, just by sending them a personal note saying, hey, I noticed you dropped your pledge. I'm just a small publisher, an independent guy. I'm a dude in my basement trying to make this work, trying to realize my dream, trying to put cool games in your hands, things that you probably won't ever be able to buy in a store. I really need your help. Can I count on you to come back? You will find that you'll recover 10% of those lost pledges just by asking.
Yeah. That's important. And that is the core question. Like, what are you willing to do? And what is the best sort of like dollar value for your time, or also internally Happy Juice? One important thing came up. Shay asked, if folks didn't know, I post, or Mark and I post the long form of all of these to our long form channel. So if, we're fighting a box everywhere, if there are things like, if James is dropping gold, but usually that happens every week. Like, one of the most amazing things about doing this every week is somebody comes up with a new something. Like, I think Becky last week was dropping some like real bombs about how to ease into a new channel. And we had 5 amazing points for that. But this particular one about comparing like before the credit card failure happened, that is just brilliant. If your pledge number, like a backer size for your project, is big enough, like sending them a personalized message, I know for a fact that I do that when it is any of the like super fight fans or people that I know. Like, for example, one of the reviewers was cleaning house on their crowdfunds or whatever, and mine got swept under. And I was like, hey, you said you love this and you backed this on your thing. Did I do something? And they're like,
Yeah.
oh no. They're like, oh no, yours is the one I meant to keep. And then they came back.
Yeah.
Like, you'd be surprised how accidentally things get lost and so forth and whatnot.
And
if
you
you have a
let them know
connection
that you're
with the
not a
person.
big ugly corporation too, right? Like I had one
Yeah.
on the last campaign where I could see that they were from, I don't know how it showed me, they were from Barrie, Ontario. I'm from Barrie, Ontario, you know, a little city in central Canada. So I said, hey, I noticed that you're actually from Barrie. I'm a local publisher. Man, I really love your help.
Don't you live in Toronto now?
No, I'm north of Toronto.
Okay. But isn't
It's all
Barrie,
the
like,
same thing.
where is Barrie in relationship to like Saskatoon or Winnipeg?
So you know where Toronto is?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you go to Buffalo,
Yeah.
drive straight north, you will run into Toronto in about 2.5, 3 hours. Okay, and if anybody saw on the news, CNN, the plane that just flipped over, the Delta plane
Yeah.
that landed, that was Toronto. Get to the airport and drive straight north from there, like 45 minutes to an hour, and you literally run right into Barrie. It goes right, that highway goes right.
So it's sort of on the way to Quebec?
Not even close. Quebec is going east.
Is it east?
Yeah, so from Toronto, you go straight east, you're going to get to Quebec. If you go straight north, you're going to get to Barrie.
All right. That's good. Like, Central, like, Canada's huge, James.
Like, I know.
Like,
it's huge.
I would think center of Canada is Winnipeg.
Yeah, so, like, if you look at Detroit, you know where Detroit, obviously you're Detroit, you know the American cities, right? So Detroit.
I'm from Detroit. I spent a lot of time in Toronto and Windsor and London.
Most of our population is within like a 5-hour drive of Detroit. Like that where it cuts down amongst all the Great Lakes. That's where the majority of our English-speaking population is. We've got like 5 pockets. There's, Vancouver area in British Columbia, which is far west coast. We have the
I'm terrible at geography. I'm absolutely terrible at
West
geography.
Coast is. Come on, man. Go straight north of San Francisco. Anyway, it's not geography. This is a Kickstarter lesson. Not geography.
No, I'm talking about the chat, James. I love Vancouver. I've spent a lot of time in Canada. I've spent a lot of time in Canada.
Oh, there we go. That's hilarious. Yeah. That was wild. That thank God to all the people on that plane. No one died. A bunch were injured, but the plane literally flipped over and like the tail ripped off and the wing ripped off and everything. Crazy.
Oh.
Anyway.
It's crazy.
I digress. I want to get back to that little nugget of learning I was giving because there's a part 2 to it. Okay. So when I said and someone asked one of the games, Artisan Games or something like that, was asking where do you see the drop backers? You go to your dashboard and you scroll down the bottom of your dashboard. It'll show you all your activity, people commenting and so forth. And it literally shows a big red bar besides anytime somebody adjusts their pledge or they drop their pledge. Now, here's the rub. You cannot reach out to somebody after they've dropped their pledge unless you've already communicated with them.
Oh.
So there's 2 hacks to this. If you're using a pledge manager, I'm going to wipe my nose, like BackerKit, you can set up an auto thank you survey that just automatically goes as soon as somebody backs. That counts as a communication. So now they're in your communication feed. I personally, and a lot of times I'll do a copy paste. Thank you for your pledge. I'll make sure to change the name out and put something personal if I know the person. And I'll literally do like 1,000 of those to make sure that everyone is hit with a message. So then if any of them drop their pledge, I can go in now and I have a history of having a chat history with them. I can then reach out and say, hey, I noticed you dropped your pledge. Can we get you back? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so that's very important if you're running a campaign. Auto message.
To note, that is a good method to do that, but it also fits in a gray area for Kickstarter. Like, especially if it's automated, they are like, hey, you should be doing that, but they can't really stop it.
Well, keep in mind though, if you're using like BackerKit, for instance, their teams are working closely with Kickstarter, right? Like the big same with like GameFound. Like if it is sanctioned by BackerKit, it's fine. Like, but for me, again, I'm sending notes, and again, it could just be a couple words. Thank you so much for your pledge. Let's see how this thing finishes. If you do that to every one of your backers, now you've got a communication that if they drop, you have now record of how you can actually get and communicate to them. You don't lose connection to that backer. So I just want to kind of throw that out there.
The value of that is that 10% that you're speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that 10% could be
it was $2,000 we recovered on lost contact.
Yeah, that's a real thing. All right. So the 3 question survey frustrated you, did it, Pat?
Yeah, it's true.
Is Pat about one of your backers, James?
You know what? It's not even the survey. The survey is more like backer kit. They want to know kind of how people came in. I'd be happy if the automated message was just "Thank you so much for your pledge. I appreciate it." I had to get them to change it because it wasn't very personal, the one they had, and I'm like, "Whoa, like guys, can we edit this and say thank you and then James?" Like I'm actually signing off. Like it was very impersonal. So, I mean, we made an adjustment on that, but that's why that's important to do. So let's talk about this leaky bucket. So that's during the campaign, the second the campaign closes, it's recovering and getting those drop credit cards so that you can get them into your pledge manager. You can recover them there. There's still going to be people that are going to come out of that leaky bucket, right? And it's the nature of the beast. I have had the pledge manager where I think with my last campaign, I still have 6 people that backed the campaign. I have their money. They have not filled out the pledge manager. And I have sent dozens of messages through Kickstarter, through Backer Kit, and personally directly to them. And then from another email directly to them in case my other one was going through a spam folder. No response. I don't know if they passed away or what, but I have no way of getting them their game until they fill out their pledge manager. It is so important to get those. Okay. So the credit cards, backer kit, put them in, manufacturer. Okay. Next, you want to get to the, before we get to the manufacturer, the importance of late pledging.
Yes.
Keep late pledging open. Most pledge managers were doing this, but now Kickstarter has inherently built this into their system where they've now opened up where you can leave late pledges in. Leave it open. You want to increase the cost. So immediately, as soon as the campaign is done, boom, the cost goes up 10, 15%. And because what you want to do is you want to make sure that people know that, A, they did back you in that time squeeze, did it for a reason, that they're not just like, well, I should have just waited and I could have backed after the campaign. So you want there to be a benefit for backing during the window. The price has to go up. You're doing a disservice to your backers if you don't increase the price. But leave it open because the minimum production run for most manufacturers is about 1,500 games, right? You can get some that'll do 5 to 1,000, some of the smaller guys, but most of them are 1,500. 1,500 backers is a really successful campaign. So the chances are you're going to have a lot of extra copies left over, even at the minimum 1,500 production run. Leave the late pledges open, ramp into the moment you're ready to do your final collection of funds or getting ready to ship. I leave mine open until usually a couple weeks before we're ready to start shipping. So again, another way people that find out about the campaign later on, hyped up on the excitement, there's maybe another 2 to 5% pledges that are going to come in after the campaign finishes. And that's money. That's free money, right? So you might as well leave it open to collect on it. Did you want to add to that, Seppy?
No, this is great. It is very important to also understand to pick these battles by scale and to set up these activities as a process. Like you really, really, really want to not have to think about this other than when you review at the end. Like I would argue to add on to all the things that you're saying, you should do these things. The only thing that I would question that James advocated, Pat mentioned, I do not advocate for the messages that send you to a survey. I think those could be really, 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 but I love a personalized thank you message to everybody. I think that is gold. I think that is absolutely whatever. But the goal for a crowdfund is, if you like it, is to be able to offer something else at a different time. And thinking about that is the core of how you change this from a hobby to a business.
Yeah. Is that a question or is that a statement?
No, that's a statement. That's a flat out statement.
I love it.
Is
like doing shirts with Kaiser Cucumber on it, for instance.
Yes. Well, then we're gonna talk about merch. We're gonna do a little bit of the wrap up. James, What would first of all, on topic, what do you talked about a lot of like loss prevention after that campaign, and all of those were gold. Any other thought processes you think people should know about right after the campaign? Like, we should have entitled this for our discussion, because you and I could easily go on for another 2 hours of this topic, but the part that we got was right after the campaign.
Yeah. So, we're almost done here. Gosh, sorry. Okay, yeah, I think right after the campaign, the importance of manufacturing. But let me preface this with, if you haven't figured out your manufacturing before you even launch, that is a problem.
That's a big problem.
That is a problem, because you are guessing at what your manufacturing cost is going to be. I would highly recommend, it is critical that you figure all this out way before you launch. One way I do this is I always do reviewer copies that are production samples. So they're not prototypes. They're literally off the line. And I force my manufacturers that I choose, I say, if you're going to be chosen, you have to agree to do a small run. And even Longpack has agreed to do that now. They used to reject it, but now they're like, okay, yeah, we're in.
Everybody offers this as a service. This has become industry standard. Like,
yeah, you have to do the small run. But what this does, it allows you to work out some of the issues that you won't know until the game is actually in front of you. There's going to be things you're not going to know. We had pockets in the tray of that game behind me over my shoulder that holds the little exploration tiles. It could be like a half an inch deeper so that the things don't kind of like shift off out of the pockets. Little things like that you're going to tweak based on having a physical sample in front of you that you'll never be able to see by going with like a virtual prototype. So that's very important.
And it depends how big your game is. Like, after our first physical version for Princess, we shrunk everything down by 35%. Yeah. It was too big. It was too big.
Knowing what I know now, even Lost Contact, I could probably, if we do a reprint on that, I'm probably going to redesign some of the elements where I think we can take a good couple inches out of that box for sure. The importance of working through with your manufacturer the process, right? They're going to give you their timelines, which again, you're going to know well before you launch, so you know your timelines. For the love of God, please do not commit to deliver a game within 6 months of your campaign being done. Sorry. When's yours, Seppy? Next year?
Mine should, by next year.
Perfect. Put a year. Things always happen. A friggin' cargo ship blocking the canal 2 years ago. COVID and not being able to get containers. And being a container shortage, planes being grounded, and like there's so many unforeseen things that are going to come up.
James, I'm going to want to have you back, and we're going to talk about the stress.
Are we done? Are you cutting me off?
Yeah, we're going to talk about the stress. No, I don't want. I want to save this gold for later, James. And you're a great guest. You have a lot to say that is like actionable nuggets, which I absolutely love. But like the stress of that campaign has everything to do with, did you set yourself up to fund in the first X period of time? And did you give yourself enough time to deliver? These are the two biggest stresses that you're talking about, like boom and boom. Like,
and the nugget of that is people usually make mistakes when they're rushing. And things are gonna fail, right? So if you set if you want to deliver in 6 months, deliver in 6 months. That's great. Just don't commit to it. Garden Geckos, we were pretty sure we could probably get it done by Christmas, but it was going to be tight. Our commitment was this game is delivering next May. We ended up delivering to most backers in December, but some we weren't able to get to January. Had we said December, we would have had 30% of our backers that would have been pissed at us because the game was late. Instead, we had 100% of the backers that were elated that our game was 5 months early.
Yeah, it is like your delivery time, like your instructions, is only important to people if you fail.
Yeah.
Right? Like instructions, like, you know, this game is kind of mediocre, but the instructions are fantastic. Like, no one has ever said that, right? Or like, what put me over the top for this game is like how I like their instructions now. Like, instructions are so small, like, and did they deliver on time? We'll give a happy shrug. But if you are massively late, then they will get mad. Like,
and that's what's creating a bad word in the industry is these campaigns that are a year, 2, 3 years late. That's what people are saying. They're exiting stage left. They're saying, "I'm done with Kickstarter. This is frustrating."
The thing is, building trust is very hard, and when something reminds people of their pain, they want to go away. It's just not fun for them anymore.
Yeah, totally agree. The other thing I was going to say is now, just with your manufacturers, is to set up SOPs. Make sure that you understand how they're going to make the games. So, what are the processes they're going through? Are they making all the components themselves? Are they outsourcing parts? If you have things in bags, you want to make sure those bags have UPC, have trackable codes on them, so it's easy to not have parts get mixed up with automated systems. It is crucial that is going to save you a lot of heartache, and I know we'll do another episode just on some of the nuances of navigating that I went through, a lot of the pain. But just on a macro scale, it is, don't just leave it to the manufacturers. You need to be intimately involved to say, no, I want to know the SOP you go through, because what allows you to do is then hold them to account if they do make an error at a later date. You want to make sure you're getting a pre-production copy that they send you, and you say to them, I want this to be exactly how it's going to go to the backers and ship it to them when I receive it. I'm going to be judging it under those eyes. Don't give me somebody in my office packed this, or no. Send it to me like it's going to go to the backers. I'm going to open it up like a backer. That is going to tell you so much about what you may need to fix and some errors.
If they don't volunteer, if that's not their default, that is a red flag for me. And there's a lot of if you're willing to put extra work into your manufacturer, you can have a manufacturer who will cost you less per unit. And we're going to talk about choosing your partners also under stress for this. James, you are absolutely fantastic. You have dropped so many truth bombs, and people are very excited to hear what you have to say. Cool. Tell us one last thing, for the people who are just stopping in about
Venus. Sorry, what's that?
Yes. Tell them what it is. Give them the hook.
Yeah. So the hook is Survivors of Venus. It's a standalone polyomino dice manipulation game. It's currently on Kickstarter. We're already 2x funded. We're on day 2 of a 30-day campaign. We appreciate any support you can throw our way, even $1. Support Seppy's game. He's in his last 48 hours. Even $1 count. Backer numbers drive algorithms. And a lot of people think, well, I don't necessarily want to get the whole game. Even $1, just throw someone $1 their way. The Zine Quest, same thing. Send $1 because the backer count will drive the algorithms. It's so important. So anybody that can go Cities of Venus, type that into Kickstarter, you'll find it. And then Survivors is the campaign running right now. It's a standalone title.
How many titles in the Venus verse now?
We've got 2 main chronicles, Chronicle 1, Chronicle 2, and then we've got 2 side chronicles, Dust Reclamation, which is an add-on to the current campaign, and Time Splices, which is an add-on to the last campaign. But you can still get all of these as part of this current campaign.
So if you like a near hard science or a hard science fiction and something with a story, James's campaign gives you a lot of plays. If you want to fully immerse yourself in an escape from Earth, James's campaign and world might be for you.
Thank you.
All right, James, you've been absolutely wonderful. For folks who are fans of the Board Game Live, we will not be on next week because I will be in Gamma. Maybe I'll do a surprise something, but I don't have a guest. I will figure out what we're doing for March's theme as we are in the undead era of the app. If you have not yet, please, as James said, go to my campaign on Kickstarter because we have been celebrating other people's zines, so forth and whatnot. If you like role-playing games or if you like smart, pocket-sized weirdness, the critics loved it, and you should think about that too. All right. Thank you for giving me your money, Artisan. Anything else, James, before we say goodbye?
The only thing I'd say is if anybody likes these little bite-sized nuggets, we have a podcast called the Board Game Binge Podcast. Available anywhere you download your favorite podcast, on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere you listen to podcasts, type in Board Game Binge. Host that every single week. We have an episode where we talk to different, just like Seppy's doing right here. We talk to people from across the industry and they share their knowledge and experience. And it's a fun little listen. You can listen to it while you're commuting or brushing your teeth in the morning.
It's great. You should check out the binge.
And Seppy
All
was
right,
a guest,
everybody.
so go back to his episode.
Yeah, everybody. Like I said, we'll see you in 2 weeks. I'll pick a topic for March. If you've got anything that you want to hear more James to talk about, please let me know either here or on our YouTube channel when we post the long form. All right, everybody.
Let's do this again.
We'll sign it out. Everybody stay safe and have fun.
Take care. Cheers.
Bye.